And then
Record. Oh,
here
all
we are.
right. Hi. Good morning, Amy. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good, Rachel. How are you?
Good. Doing wonderful. I am super excited today to talk about a thrilling topic, and that is debt. Doesn't everyone love to talk about debt?
The best.
Um, the problem is that so many people don't like to talk about it, which of course then has people creating more debt and then just holding on to it. And I know, actually, I was just looking at the news this morning about the student loan debt, potentially, some of it being forgiven, and some people on the news saying, I have this debt and I don't even want to look at it because I feel like it's completely unattainable to pay off. And I'm talking to my TV going, no, it's not. No, it's not. And so that's what we want to talk about today, is just like how to sort of wrap your head around your debt and why you should do so. And then like how you can plan to get it paid off, because it is absolutely possible.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, Rachel. You know what? And as we jump in, I wanted to say this about the news. I just feel like I have to say it now because if I don't say it, I'll forget. Remember, when it comes to the news and marketing and social media, these companies are crafty. They are very crafty at making sure that we think it's one way where it's really not that way.
Right.
That's called money, business, politics. Get some news, exposure. And so today we're going to talk about why that is not true, right, Rachel?
Yeah. Well, and like I feel like media, society, whatever you want to say, really tells us too that having debt is okay. It's okay because we all have it, right? So it's no big deal. We all have it. So who cares? And while like there's a certain like realistic understanding to that, it's also not necessarily okay if you can create a plan and get it paid off, because why are you spending your money on interest if you don't have to be? Like, let's figure out how to spend your money on things that you really want to spend your money on. So let's dig in. Yes. So again, like just sort of the general feeling of I have debt and that's fine because everybody has it, who cares, is actually really weighing on you. And a lot of studies and research shows that having debt really does cause anxiety. It can cause depression, sleep issues, issues with your partner, your living, the people you live with, because of that stress that you're carrying around debt. So while in the front of your head, you might be saying it's no big deal, everybody has it, in the back of your head, it is weighing on you and you're stressed about it. And like, what if you lose your job and you've got all these debt payments? I mean, so that's why we want to talk about it. And that's why, Amy, you and I love to really help people feel more comfortable talking about their money, because we think it's so important. And if you don't ever talk about it, you are never going to get it paid off and you are going to have that stress and anxiety. And we want to help folks ease that.
Yeah. I really wanted to open with saying this. I've been on both ends of it, and I wanted to have a vulnerable moment here because I think this is important to say early on. We've lived with a lot of debt. When we got married first, we came into our marriage with, I didn't have any debt other than my car and my house. My husband had a bunch, student loans and, other stuff and some credit cards. And it didn't seem like it was all that big of a deal in our marriage. But I will say early on, I decided to quit my job, which I was making a pretty good amount of money, upward of 6 figures. And my husband wasn't. And we had no plan with our money. And we had a lot of debt going out every single month compared to what was coming in. And I've got to say, Rachel, being on the other side of that, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Our relationship changed. And you don't think that the debt is the thing that makes you feel a little on edge in your relationship, and maybe the way you feel about yourself. But I really want to say this in the beginning as we talk about these things, is it feels amazingly different.
Yeah.
When there's $1,000 or $2,000 extra in the budget and you start just planning for the expenses rather than letting it just happen and taking control of that. So I really want to encourage, don't stop listening to this
Yeah,
recording
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because man, does it feel good. Man, does it
yeah.
change everything. But having a coach, Rachel, you are amazing in this area. I mean, one of the best. And so having a coach, well worth it. I really wish we would have taken the time to do that early on. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
open with that. Listen, listen, listen. This is for everyone.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Amy. Yeah, when my current partner and I first met, I also didn't have any debt and he did. And it was a constant stressor for me. And I think he was one of those people that had it in the front of his head was it's no big deal, I have it, who cares? But in the back of his head, it was totally weighing on him. And he didn't have a great job. And so most of his money was going to his rent and his debt payments. And so like that put a strain on us initially, because of course, initially when we first start dating, we want to go out and do all these things and he wants to pay for everything. But then he can't, and then we can't do things, right? And I don't want to make him feel bad either, but like, that's why we've got to get this figured out. And so we did, of course, we worked together and that's also so great is to have a partner that you can work with. But we worked together and figured out what we can do. And we did sacrifice at the beginning. He did, shouldn't say we were in a new relationship, but but I was helping him through it and I wasn't giving him money, but helping him with the understanding and the education around it. So, yeah, so he sacrificed at the beginning and now we've been living debt free for, I don't know, 6 years. 6.5 years, like the two of us together. Other than, to be fair, we do have a car, payments, and we do have a mortgage. However, I am slated to pay off my car 3 years early, so I'm really excited about that. But but other than that, there's no high interest credit card debts that we have, and we haven't had those for a very long time. So it really does. And then like our money is our money then. So that's why it's so important to pay off your debt. But even before we get there, folks need to be comfortable. They don't even need to be comfortable. They need to be willing to look at what their debt is and to write it all down. And one thing that I do with my clients is when we're putting together an initial budget, one of the tabs on that spreadsheet is all about your debt. And my clients need to write down what their balance is for everything. And I have them include everything, including their car. I usually wait on the mortgage until a little later because that's not as important right now, but write down what their balance is and what their interest rates are and what their minimum payments are. And until you get that, you can't make a plan and you can't start working on your debt. I don't even recommend people like coming up with a plan just in their head until they write all that stuff down. We need to really see what we have. Do we have 2 credit cards that are about the same interest rate and they're both like kind of around the same amount? That's going to be a different plan than somebody who has 7 different credit cards with different interest rates and totally different balances. So, we need to figure out what that is. And we also need to figure out what's priority for you and also how much money you technically have left to be able to put on your debt. So we got to put together that big budget too. But Amy, I know you and I both recommend the snowball effect. Because there are a couple different ways to pay off debt, to be fair, and everyone should choose what they want and what is most comfortable for them. But we like the snowball, which basically says you're going to take your debt that has the lowest balance, regardless of the interest rate, except for your car. I don't want to say regardless of the interest rate, because when you have a car that's like a 4% interest rate and a credit card that's a 25% interest rate, doesn't matter if you owe a little less on your car. That's extreme. But if you've got 6 different cards, and one of them is 19% and the other ones are closer to 23%, but one of them you have a $400 balance and then maybe the next one is $1,000 and maybe the next one's 10,000. Again, this is just Amy and I, not everybody is going to feel this way, but we don't recommend starting with the one with the highest interest rate. We recommend starting with whichever one has the lowest balance. And do you want to talk about why we recommend sort of starting in that way?
Yeah. Well, obviously, it gives you something to be excited about really fast.
Yeah.
And that's human nature, right? We are all ADD when it comes to these things because for the most part, it's uncomfortable for us, right? This is something new that we're entering into. And so, yeah, it makes it exciting. It makes it fun. It makes it doable. Like, oh my goodness, look, I did it.
Yeah.
Now I can go do it again.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. So if you've got like a $400 balance on this card and your minimum payment's $75 and you start putting 150 on because you realize you've got 75 extra dollars that you could be putting on your debt, you're going to get that paid off obviously a lot faster than if you were doing the minimum payment. It's more than just interest. It's if you do the calculator, that makes a big difference, even when you just make a few extra dollars of extra over the minimum payment. But if you're making 150, you're going to get that paid off. Then you can take your next highest and then you're going to feel good, right? Like you just said, you're going to feel excited. You're going to be like, sweet, I have it. And then I would recommend putting that card aside and maybe not using it for a while. And then you
Dave
can start.
Ramsey says freeze it and put it in a bag of water and freeze it in your freezer so that you can't get to it.
You could do that. You also could call the credit card company and ask them to freeze it.
Oh, there you go. Even better.
And then you can take that $150 that you were putting on that debt and put it on maybe you have $1,000 credit card, right?
Yep.
Plus whatever minimum payment you were making on that. So if that was $75, you're going to add that to 150, and now you're paying $225 on that card instead of a minimum of 75. And so every time you get a card paid off, so before you know it, and this doesn't also require you to spend tons of extra money every month. This is saying, what do you have left over that you are willing and able to put extra on, right? We do want to put a little extra. And then once we figure that out, that's all your monthly payments are. They're no more than that. We're just focusing on one debt at a time, getting that gone and focusing on the next one. So that's what's so great about the snowball. The avalanche is basically starting with your highest interest rate, which sometimes that is also the same as your lowest balance. Like that could be possible, but that's really focusing on interest. Where Amy and I like to focus more on like the motivation and the more immediate. Because if your highest interest is $15,000 balance, that's going to take you time to get that paid off. And meanwhile, you're paying a minimum payment on a $400 one when you could have, had that paid off. So that's just, our thoughts. And that's what I've seen too with my clients is it's the motivation is much higher. It's just like, if you step on the scale and say, I want to lose 100 pounds, that feels like very overwhelming. But if you say, I want to lose 5 pounds, that seems like very realistic. And obviously you have to lose 5 before you can lose 100. So it's the same thing. You've got to get one paid off before you fully get all of your debt paid off. So, yep, we just got to start small, and you've got to just be okay and willing to write it all down and see it on paper, because then trust me, you will not feel good and comfortable and confident until you do that, because then you can make a plan.
Well, and if we could maybe use an analogy that here, Rachel, I think it's very similar. This is the analogy I use all the time. It's like going on a road trip. Money is like a road trip, right? It can be a long one across the United States, several thousand miles. And if we just got back from Colorado. If I was going from Ohio to Colorado, it would be foolish of me to jump into my car and go, I'm going to head west. Now I know Colorado is west and a bit south, but I would never jump in my car and say, I'm going on a road trip without first knowing where I am, right? We use a GPS, it knows where we start, and we tell it where we're trying to go. And what does it do? Step, stop off at the rest stop, next step. And I take that 20-hour trip or 24-hour trip and I break it into several 3, 4, 5, 6-hour trips, right? To get to my final destination. Why do I do that? Well, I would fall asleep behind the wheel. I would have fatigue.
You get lost.
It would not happen. It would take me longer. I would reroute a million times. And when I would reach my destination, I would reach it feeling with much frustration instead of reaching destination with so much excitement. We're here. The trip was great. It wasn't terrible. Yeah, did it get a little rocky here and there? Sure it did. Every trip does. But we got there. Yeah. And now we get to enjoy our work and have that reward. So I feel like that's great. No different. It's no different. I love that. It's how it works.
Yes, I love that, because then along the way of this road trip, you're feeling good because you know what you're doing. Whereas if you just get in your car and take off, you're feeling stressed behind the wheel because you're like, where am I going to end up? How am I going to get there? Who am I going to see? Where should I stop? But yeah, if you plan it, you feel good the whole way because you know that you you know what you're doing. You've got it under control. But that's a great, I love it. I never heard that before, but I love it because that's a great analogy for debt is so many people just literally don't even know where they're starting from and they're afraid to look at it.
Yep.
And I understand that, but unfortunately that just continues the cycle.
Yeah, it does. Well, and fear is a great motivator, positive or negative. Not knowing where I'm going, huge negative, right? I mean, that's how our bodies are built.
Yeah.
Going into the unknown is always scary because our bodies are built with that defense mechanism to protect us. I talked about that last week, listening to your body, listening to your emotions. When something's not feeling right, what you're doing with your money, you need to listen to that and say, I need to go find the answers myself, or better yet, do yourself a favor, reach out to Rachel, reach out to us. Take somebody who's taken the time to understand and study this stuff that is an expert. To save you the frustration of going through it yourself. You don't have to be alone, and you don't have to be ashamed. I'll say that. That's why I wanted to start with this story. We have had so many clients, friends reach out to us over the year in tears, saying, Bobby, Amy, we're way over our head. I don't know if you can help, but if you can, it's going to be messy. I'm willing to be vulnerable. Can you show me? And we've been able to say, don't feel bad. We've been there.
Yeah.
We've been there. We don't learn about money. Unfortunately, it's not taught at school. It's not taught at home. It's not sexy and appealing for some people to say, let's spend the weekend, honey, and learn how to get out of our debt. But that's why you have professionals, because we do love it and we want to help. And that's our calling, right? So
and, like, how could I possibly judge someone for coming to me for help? That is huge. And I don't care what your financial situation looks like, whether you have $100,000 in debt or you literally have nothing and you just want to get organized because you're just feeling disorganized. It doesn't matter because you're coming and asking for help. And that is amazing. And I'm only going to feel proud of you for doing that. And I had a client recently say, like, she was in her mind and had all these thoughts. And she was like, I don't even want to meet with Rachel because I'm afraid that she's going to judge me and I'm going to feel bad. And, and I let her talk through it. And then I said, okay. I said, I truly want you to answer this and you don't have to answer it right now, but have you ever felt like I've judged you? And she laughed. She's like, no, absolutely not. I feel like the complete opposite. She's like, I'm just in my head and I'm just having all these thoughts. And I get it, of course, like, and also I'm a stranger to, I'm assuming most people that are listening to this, and so they're like, well, why would I? Yeah, she's probably going to be judgy or to make me feel bad about it. But that is like the opposite of why I'm here, because my mission, I have a couple missions that I keep saying, but one of my missions is to help people feel confident and comfortable in their money decisions. And no one's ever going to feel that way if people are shaming them. And unfortunately, there are people out there who do. So, but like you said, Amy, if you're out there looking for help, you've got to find that right person. So even like if you're just reaching out to a financial advisor, I always recommend talking to 2 or 3 or more different ones until you find the right fit, because some people are not going to maybe be a good fit for you, and it's your money and it's very personal, and you do need to find that person that it's going to be good, because like you said, most people don't like to talk about it. So if you're like meeting with somebody that you're not feeling good about, or that you do feel like it's judging you, you're not going to be open and honest about it. So just to wrap up, this is going long because we could talk about this for another 3 days, I think.
You would have thought. It's such a fun thing to talk about.
I love it because it's so empowering to me. And I love to, like, when I have clients that say, I feel like I can do this. Like now I feel like I have a plan and I could do this. Oh, it's so inspiring to me. I love it. And like Amy and I said, like, we've both been living debt free for a while. And so we know what it's like to not, and we know what it's like to be living that way. And it's totally different. My money is my money and I don't have to spend it on all these minimum payments and interest. Anyway, Amy, if you want to tell us a little bit about you and like where folks can find you if they want more information.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Amy Ruggeri with the Ruggeri Group. My husband and I run our agency together. We are full service financial advisors, insurance, investments, paying off debt, having a plan, that's what we do. That's what we really love, is helping people feel confident and comfortable and on track with where they're going. So you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. I run all my stuff through my personal page, Amy Ruggeri, and then I also run a Facebook group dedicated to normalizing the money conversation, and that's called Smart Money Moves dash the Ruggeri Group. So
Yeah,
you can find us on Facebook there.
it's a great group that you have there on Facebook. And I'm Rachel Durci. I'm a financial wellness coach, and my business is Effortless Budgeting. My website and everything from there is very easy. Website's effortlessbudgeting.com. And then I also have a Facebook page and Instagram on Effortless Budgeting. And then I do LinkedIn, although not as often, under just my personal name. And then YouTube, which if you're watching this, you probably are on my YouTube page. So please subscribe and comment and let us know what else you all want to hear about, because we'd be happy to talk about whatever is interesting for all you guys. So thanks for listening, and thanks, Amy, for chatting with me as always. It was great, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel.